Have you noticed that, silently, a new religion is forming? And the scariest part, many are already part of it without even realizing it. Imagine being lured by sweet words, promises of peace and unity, but without knowing that behind it lies a movement that seeks to weaken your faith and divert your principles. Does it sound like an exaggeration? Yet, this is exactly what is happening right now at this very moment. While you're reading these words, invisible forces are working to gather the great religions of the world under a single banner, promoting a diluted faith without commitment to the truth. But what is the real purpose of this new religion? And more importantly, are you prepared to resist? This story isn't just another conspiracy theory. There is a force at work, uniting Catholics, Muslims, and Jews in a movement that disguises itself as peace and harmony. What they don't tell you is that this new faith may cost you the essence of your deepest belief. Are you ready to know more? What comes next will open your eyes to a reality that few dare to discuss. There is a silent change happening in the world. A new world religion is emerging, gaining strength, and attracting followers from all over. Imagine an invisible current that slowly forms but with powerful force, challenging Christian faith in ways few are prepared to understand. It's almost like an underground river, flowing unnoticed, but gradually shaping the land around it. It's not just a new belief system. It's something that shakes the foundations of what we understand as faith. This new religion isn't obvious. It doesn't present itself as something radical right away. It seduces with promises of unity, universal love, and the idea that we can find God in many ways. But at its core, a seed of doubt is planted, challenging the most basic certainties of Christianity. An interesting analogy would be the story of the Trojan horse. The enemy doesn't appear at your door with violence, but with gifts and sweet words. Many are already being drawn to this idea without realizing the risks it presents. The real danger lies in its ability to adapt to modern times, infiltrating daily conversations and presenting itself as a solution to the religious conflicts the world faces. It's almost like a virus, invisible but capable of infecting hearts. Those who don't pay attention might find themselves immersed in this new form of faith, one that demands no sacrifices or deep commitments. And so, without realizing it, many may be giving up fundamental principles of the Christian faith. But there is much more at stake than just adhering to a new belief. This new religion proposes something surprising: the union of three great pillars of world faith: Catholicism, Islam, and Judaism. It seems almost impossible to believe that, in such a divided world, there is an attempt to bring together traditions that for centuries have held firmly to their dogmas and particularities. Imagine this as a great construction, a cathedral that seeks to unite these three belief systems under one roof. However, what is being built is not just a physical structure. It is an ideology that seeks to erase the boundaries between these religions. The most tangible example of this union is in Abu Dhabi, in the United Arab Emirates, where the Abrahamic family house is being built. This place symbolizes the effort to unite these religions, using the figure of Abraham, who is considered a patriarch common to all three faiths. However, there is tension in this concept, because although it seems to promote peace and unity, it hides an attempt to relativize beliefs that, historically, have never been reconcilable. It's almost like forcing three puzzle pieces that don't fit together, hoping no one notices the flaws. Many may look at this movement with hope, believing that we may finally live in a world where religion no longer divides people. But the reality is more complex. The attempt to unite these distinct religions can result in a diluted belief, a faith that, in trying to please everyone, loses its essence. The danger lies precisely in accepting this fusion without questioning what is being left behind. And this leads us to question who is behind this unification and what the real purpose is behind this construction. Even though many still expect a physical and imposing figure to represent the Antichrist, the reality, according to the narrative, is that his spirit has been at work for a long time. He does not appear in an obvious way but subtly influences thoughts and behaviors, like a shadow moving among us unnoticed. It's like the wind we feel on our faces but cannot see. His ideas and doctrines are already deeply rooted in various aspects of society, especially among Christians who, without realizing it, adopt practices that go against the teachings of Christ. This influence manifests in speeches and ideologies that place human desires and feelings above the Word of God. Often, we hear phrases like, "Do what makes you happy," or "Follow your heart," which at first glance seem harmless. However, they may hide a dangerous message, that divine commandments can be shaped according to our wills. A practical example of this is the growing acceptance of behaviors that were once considered sinful, but today are treated as mere personal choices, ignoring biblical warnings. The spirit of the Antichrist acts in small concessions, in the justifications we create to avoid following the precepts of faith. The seduction lies in making the wrong path seem right, in making error attractive and even convenient. When society begins to value human feelings more than divine truth, it opens itself to this pernicious influence. And so, without realizing it, many are allowing this spirit to lead them away from true faith, preparing the ground for something much greater to come. The greatest danger of false doctrines is not their openly heretical appearance, but the subtlety with which they infiltrate people's minds and hearts. Falsehood does not present itself obviously. It disguises itself as something familiar, something that at first glance seems in line with the values you already know. It's like a tree with rotten roots, which from afar appears healthy, but upon closer inspection, you realize its base is corroded. The Antichrist, according to the video, acts exactly in this way, mixing truths with lies to deceive even the most faithful. These false doctrines often appeal to human ego, making people feel in control of their own lives and decisions, as if man were the center of the universe. How many times have we heard the phrase, "Follow your heart"? Though it may seem like good advice, often it is the perfect trap to make someone ignore God's will. In practice, this can translate into decisions that seem right at the time but over time prove destructive because they were based on emotion, not faith. False doctrines also gain strength when religious leaders, whether out of ignorance or self-interest, adopt these ideas and propagate them in their churches. The danger here is how these ideas can begin to shape people's perceptions of what is or isn't acceptable in God's eyes. Many, without realizing it, are drifting away from the true gospel in search of a message that is easier, more comfortable. And it is at this point that subtlety turns into a fatal trap. Now that you are aware of the dangers this new world religion represents, the question that remains is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue to let these subtle influences shape your faith? Or will you take a firm stand to protect yourself from these false doctrines? Change begins when we become aware, but it only truly happens when we take action. It's time to reassess your beliefs, reflect on what really matters, and seek the truth that sets you free. And are you ready to resist these deceptive teachings? Or will you continue to be carried away by the currents of modernity that try to soften the true message of the gospel? If you want to keep learning about this and other topics that directly impact your life and faith, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. Don't let this knowledge go unnoticed. This is just the beginning, and there's much more to come.